those of you who don't know, I had the great pleasure of playing Mike Peterson, aka Deathlok, on Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on ABC. I want to spend this time talking to you about how I booked that role. There are some very key principles that I want to share with you about how that role came into existence for me. So I'm going to use footage from interviews I did at the time when the show came out. This first interview that I'm going to show you is from a show called AfterBuzz TV. And here is where I explain the mechanics of the audition process. Joss Whedon was the creator of my very first series called Angel, and he was also the creator, one of the creators and executive producers of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Check it out.
It was so exciting when I saw you on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because, again, like I said, I'm a huge Angel. I grew up with Angel and Buffy. And I love that your audition, you sent an email to Josh afterwards, but he actually didn't get it.
Yes, exactly. So what happened was, it was interesting because it was right around the new year, and my New Year's resolution that year was I was just going to try new things. I was going to throw my old playbook out the window. And one of the rules of my playbook was not to go in for auditions the same day that I get the material, because it makes me really uncomfortable, because I like to have the lines memorized and I like to really, really work on it and immerse myself in the material. And then my manager called me and said, I know you don't like to do this, but you have an appointment today for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And knowing my New Year's resolution, I just said yes right away, because usually I would say no, but I wanted to be on the show too. So I said yes, absolutely. So, you know, it makes me really uncomfortable to read the scene and not have the lines memorized, but I figured they know that I just got the material a few hours ago. I know I just got the material a few hours ago. There's no way I could have the lines all memorized. So I just went, I kind of threw myself into it, and I felt really good about it. And I just kind of went home and I wrote Joss an email and I said, listen, I just went in for your new show, and I just want you to know, if you see anything in my performance that would be right for the character, I promise you I'll give you 110%. Later that night, my manager called and said, you're being considered for the role. Don't cut your hair and don't shave. And I was like, oh, that's cool. My phone was ringing off the hook when I woke up, and my manager was like, you got it, you got it. You got to go to Joss's office now and talk about the role. So I went to his office, and the first thing I said was, yeah, I really meant what I said in that email. And he goes, what email?
So the thing about that story that I want to highlight regarding how I became a Marvel superhero was relationships. I had a great relationship with not only Joss, but all of the other producers, writers who also went on to cast me in other things. I had a great relationship with them because on Angel, I made sure that I creatively owned the character, which is something else we're going to talk about now. Also, I would maintain that I did quality work on Angel, which is why Joss ultimately thought of me for the role of Mike Peterson, because as he explains to me, they had a really hard time casting that role. And when he woke up that morning at about 11 o'clock in the morning, he thought, oh my God, I know who would be great for this part, Jay. And so that is why I got the audition on the same day. Now, what I didn't explain in that interview, and this is a very important part of the story, is that before I booked Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I had 3 years of, well, let's call it 18 months of underemployment where I did 2 guest spots and 18 months of no jobs whatsoever. That is the longest stretch in my career I've gone without a steady paycheck. So we'll call that 3 years. So in that 3 years, I became very, things started changing for me. It affected my confidence a little bit. It affected my bank account a little bit. But fortunately, I had saved a lot of my money from Angel, which is something else I talk about in the course in the chapter on money. So I was okay financially. It's just that not working for 3 years can be very disheartening. And I was very disheartened. So right before booking the role, I had a little bit of a revelation, which is why I made that resolution that I was going to try new things in this year. So here I'm going to cut to a convention appearance that I made where I explained the sort of emotional details around me booking the role. I apologize for the sound. It wasn't recorded well, but the story is very well told, so I'm going to share it with you now. Check it out.
Prior to booking Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I could not get an acting job to save my life. So for 18 months, for 18 solid months, I was auditioning maybe 5 times a week, not really 3, 4, 5, something like that. But some weeks I would have 5 auditions. And about 6 to 7 or 8 months in, I got sick of being told he was great, but he just looks too young. He was great, but he looks too old. He was great, but he's too handsome for the role. He's great, but he's not hot enough. I literally got those 4 excuses, well, I don't mean to say excuses, reasons in 1 week. And after that, I really shut down. I got so discouraged and so frustrated and was really not knowing what was going to happen with, me and my career, my life and stuff like that. And then I had a turnaround, which is everything you just said. Everything that you just said was a long process of soul searching for me, of meditation and prayer, and I came to everything that you just said. Hearing that, or knowing that, finally understanding that my value, my worth, my humanity is independent of an acting job, independent of money, independent of quote-unquote celebrity, independent of everything. Like who I am exists outside of anything material. And I got really clear about that. So now we're about a year into my unemployment, and I am working on this audition for something else. I'm working so hard, right? I'm working like I used to work when I first started, like really passionately and really trying to figure out how to connect the dots of this character. And in an instant, I kind of zoomed out and saw myself working so hard on this thing, having not worked for a year, having not gotten a call back in a year, and I saw myself clearly, and I was like, wow, most people would have given up by now, but you are still hitting this so hard, Jay. You are doing that, Jay. And I kind of fell in love with myself that day. I'm trying to get through the story without crying, but I really, I was just, it was just one of those moments where things were falling apart, but you still have the strength. Cut to 6 months later, I had an audition for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and they want me to do something that I'm not comfortable doing, which is going in for an audition the same day that I get the material, actually showing up at the audition, getting the script, reading it, and then going into audition. I'm very uncomfortable doing that because I really like to work on things. And when I read the script, the audition scene, it was my last scene on the pilot where the character says, he says, I couldn't. And this is exactly what happened to me on the set. He said, your fucking question. You asked what seemed really personally touching. And I said, I could be, a hero. And this man whose whole life is falling apart around him. His son has been taken from him, his wife, his job, and he thinks that S.H.I.E.L.D. is about to kill him. And right before he dies, or he thinks he's about to die, he says, I could be, a hero. And I thought about myself that day in my bedroom working on the material. And that was it.
So, what do we learn from that story, and what is important about becoming a Marvel superhero or booking any role? That story for me really illustrates perfectly what I mean when I say make it personal. What I mean when I say don't do the role right, do it as you. Just because it's a comic book doesn't mean it doesn't want the same level of emotion and truth. The same level of emotional truth. That is very important. Now, another huge thing that I talk about in my course is creatively owning the character. Now, one of the executive producers, Jeff Bell, asked me to bulk up. After I did the pilot, once I knew I was coming back, he called me privately, somebody else that I had a great relationship with, and he said that they wanted me to bulk up a little bit for the role. I was going to be turned into a superhero. They couldn't tell me which one, but they wanted me to bulk up a little. So that required me to do something else that I talk about in my course: expand my team. I hired a personal trainer by the name of Eric Thomas Wilson. He's somebody that I met socially. We hit it off, and I knew that when the time was right, I was going to hire him to be my trainer. I did. We worked out together for about 3 months, I think, is what we had. And I got into the best shape of my life. He really knew how to, he was the perfect trainer for me. He knew how to motivate me. He knew how to push me. I'm a very spiritual person. He is as well. And therefore, he was able to motivate me in that way, to push past all of my limitations. When you're hiring somebody new on your team, you want to find someone who speaks your language. There is no reason whatsoever to be working with someone who does not speak your language, who does not get the job done. And I got lucky. This man was incredible. One of the other huge points I want to drive home, one of the huge morals of this story, is that they didn't hire a guy who was already in superhero shape. They hired the best actor. If you want to be a Marvel superhero or any character that is in fiction or graphic novels or whatever, they are always, 9 times out of 10, they're going to actually hire the best actor and get that person in shape. You know why? Because it is harder to find a good actor than it is to find somebody with a great body. One of the things I would love to share with my young male and some female and non-binary followers, I sound like Rihanna,
that both men and women and non-binary people of all gender appropriations and the pronouns
and gender appropriations. One message I want to send to everybody is working out is wonderful. I do it. I've worked out my entire life. I enjoy working out. I feel like I get something out of working out. But working out is not perfecting your craft. Yes, it's wonderful to look great. And yes, if you're an ingenue, if you're a leading man, if you're somebody who wants to, plays a lot of sexy characters or something, yeah, that's very important. But what is always more important is the work. If you spend more time in the gym than you do in acting class, I want you to really reevaluate that, because we need you to be the best actor you can be so that we can cast you and you can deliver on whatever role we put you in. So those are the things that I wanted to share with you about being a Marvel superhero. I think the most important takeaways are relationships. With every job you book, there are the seeds of 10 other jobs. So with every job you book, you want to do your best. You want to creatively own the character and give a performance to where people want to work with you again. Number 2, creatively owning the character. That is what I would consider what I did in the gym, as well as bringing my own deep personal truths to the character. Number 3, being creative about who you bring on your team. I hired a trainer to help me reach the results that I wanted for the character. Thank you so much for your time. My name is J. August Richards. The course is Being a Series Regular. You can find it at www.beingaseriesregular.com. Take it easy.